I had some major consequences staring me down, and I took a look at where I was, and it was pretty bleak. Um, but just to run through some of them, like I had a criminal case, I had a DUI, I lost custody of my children temporarily, so
Upside down.
it was pretty bad.
Ladies and gentlemen,
You are now about to witness
The journey that is the Lyfe Choyces podcast. We talked a little bit earlier. We were getting in a bit of a discussion just about like the way life is right now compared to like where it was when we grew up. And it's hard to find people that you can sit down and have a real conversation with, which is such a shame. It seems to be something that's been taken out of our lives for some reason that we might not know about. And trying to get back to that, it's kind of hard because you need to find people that are on the same level as you or at the same point in your journey to have a conversation of a little bit more depth. And do you find this to be a daily occurrence?
I do think that having the goal of it being a daily occurrence is a wonderful thing. I don't know that the struggle is finding the people to have the conversations with. I think it's a time thing these
What do you
days
mean by that? A time thing?
where it's just not a priority, or there's so many other things that we feel we need to accomplish in a day that like prioritizing a conversation where you're connecting with someone and truly having like a heartfelt, mentally stimulating conversation just isn't on the top of that list all the time.
And that's unfortunate. I've started talking to people or started the conversation about making time. How many hours do you normally get to sleep?
Oh, um, gosh, I sleep a lot, I think, compared to most people. I prioritize my sleep. I usually get at least 8, I would say an average of 8 hours of sleep.
Wow. Okay. So I go 6. So I get 18 hours of possible productivity throughout the day. So you get 16 if you're doing 8 hours of sleep. So if you have 16 hours of possible productivity in a day, how do you go about prioritizing that list?
I have a job and I have children, dogs. And so I don't know how much of that I get to truly be the person in charge of that. These are choices that I've made to have in my life, and these are things that bring me joy, but they also all take time. I'm also in a program of recovery, and so there is time allotted for a conversation in a way or connection with people that I feel like is extremely helpful. With my work, I definitely do like a morning brain dump on paper where I write down my priorities for the day and I rank them. My home life, I have a separate list where I write down things that I want to get done for the week. But as far as like the routine things, they just flow the way that they are. The cool thing in my life right now is that I do have my children 50% of the time. So I have a week on with them and then I have a week to myself. And I'm learning to really enjoy that balance of having that time where I'm like, this is my me time now. So this week I've enjoyed working and doing the things that I want to do. And a lot of those have been like either focusing on my recovery, focusing on my spiritual development, or focusing on organizing stuff in my house, which sounds a
Which I'm
little
sure
less
that
fun.
third one is probably massive because you have 2 kids,
I have 3 children,
3
but one
children.
of them's an adult now,
Okay.
so
Okay.
yeah.
Yay. One less
She's
to
in
somewhat not
college.
worry about.
Yeah.
Congrats on that. So the third one is the most time consuming, obviously, is having things to take care of in the house to make sure when the kids are around, everything's taken care of. And
Mhm.
that's clearly a choice that an individual makes when they want to become a parent or when they become a parent, right?
Right.
The other 2 things, which I know I see one thing that you do regularly, you do a sauna yoga.
I do.
What is that exactly about?
So I joined HotWorks, which is
Okay.
a gym. I believe it's a franchise. And I joined it in, I want to say 2021. So I've been at it for about 4 years. And it's been amazing. And I was doing it for a while, like very um structured where I would go like at least 4 or 5 times a week. But at this stage in my life right now, I'm going once or twice a week, and it feels a little bit more achievable. But it's amazing in so many ways because it's helping me to stay limber. It's helping me to achieve the fitness goals that I have. And then it's also like a detox. Like I just love being hot and sweaty. Summer's my favorite time of year. So it just gives me like that time to just reflect.
And you're by yourself in the sauna?
Most of the time I'm by myself. I go super early in the morning, so it's not a crowded situation,
But
and
it's not a class situation.
it's a TV on a wall with an instructor, so it's
Okay.
guided. You don't have to follow the guide, but I choose to. And the sauna can hold up to 3 people, but when you book, you can see if there's people in the room or if there's not. Sometimes someone will book after me and I'll have a co-workout person, but usually
Okay.
I'm there alone.
So you're showing up for yourself,
Mhm.
and you were going many times before because maybe availability in your schedule, and now life is life. So you're showing up for yourself. You're saying at least once a week I need to go and have this time for myself, and it does many things for you. It helps you mentally, physically, obviously,
Mhm.
and that's amazing that you have that practice and you clearly fit that into your schedule. You make sure throughout your week, okay, I'm going to go at least once, and boom, you get a check mark. You got that off the list.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that it's like, I don't do yoga as much as I should. Like I do it. I rarely go to a class. I normally just do it at home, or if I'm at work, that's the exercise I'll do because I don't have like weights around
Mhm.
me. And I feel it's so important to stay limber. As I'm setting up this whole place, I had to build a bunch of furniture and
Mhm.
sit on the floor and use, and after like 5-10 minutes to stand up afterwards, all of a sudden it was like almost like I was like stuck in like from my hips down. And I had to do upward dog,
Yeah.
like to get that lower back not tight. And again, then I say to myself, well, that's your fault because you have not been practicing your yoga, which in turn will make you more limber. And everyone, I think, at a young age should start doing, you don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to lift iron and become Mr. Universe unless that's what you want.
Mhm.
But you definitely, I think yoga should be part of gym class at a young age so people can understand the importance. Like,
Yeah. And
when,
it's interesting, like, sometimes I'm talking to people and I find that the word yoga sometimes is polarizing for people, and I'm like, "All right, well, let's just call it stretching." Like, just stretch. 'Cause, you hang out with people and you see people, like, groaning and moaning when they stand up or sit down, and it's like, "You might wanna work on stretching a little bit, like, stretch when you wake up or, before you go to bed. Just
before I
stretch your
even get
body."
out of bed, literally
Yeah.
before I get out of bed, I sleep on my back. I start on my side. I always wake up on my back with my arms above my head because obviously
Congratulations.
I
That's
can't.
amazing.
Well, no, it's because I can't breathe, and your body's natural reaction is to put your arms above your head to
What?
open up your chest. Yeah, yeah. Look into it. That's literally what it is. So I sleep, probably snore, and I can't breathe. So my body rolls over, arms above my head like this. I wake up, and I did some research. It's because I'm not breathing at night. But before I get out of bed, I'm laying on my back usually, and I'll just like with my feet, and then with my like my wrists, whatever, and then I kind of like everything, and I can hear everything like crack or
Mhm.
whatever. But I do that to kind of like loosen up at least for 30 seconds before putting my feet down and getting into my flip flops and heading out of my room. And I find that it does really good for me, and it's different when you're above the age of 40, I think. Getting down on the ground's not as easy. But you are correct. The stereotype of yoga, the generalization of what people think it is, and unfortunately a lot of men feel uncomfortable like before they go for the first time because they're like, oh, that's a woman thing, like whatever. And it's like, motherfucker, I would love to see you do an hour of yoga and then an hour of the gym and tell me which one you think is more difficult.
The benefits of it are just amazing. So, whatever it is that's turning anyone off from it, I just encourage them to think differently about it.
Not just physically, but mentally, it
Mhm.
helps you. Mental health to me is the most important. I cannot do things in life if my brain is not, you know, where it needs to be.
Mhm.
So you've mentioned that you are recovering or you're in a program of sorts. Can we touch on that a bit?
Sure.
Yeah. So what happened?
Alcoholism is what happened with me. And I was living in a state of denial for a really long time because who wants to admit that they're an alcoholic or has any type of disease? I decided to finally admit full powerlessness of alcohol at a nice old age.
But was there a pinnacle moment? Was there a certain situation that kind of you were like, fuck?
Well, yeah, I mean, I hit a really, really rocky bottom. And I had some major consequences staring me down. And I took a look at where I was, and it was pretty bleak. Um, but just to run through some of them, like I had a criminal case, I had a DUI, I lost custody of my children temporarily, so
Upside down.
it was pretty bad. Um, looking back on it now, it's exactly what I needed to have that reality check because my ego and my defensiveness was just so strong that I did not want to admit that I had a problem. And I had like all of these ideas of, well, I can't be an alcoholic because I don't drink every day, or I can't be an alcoholic because I don't live under a bridge wearing a trench coat, or there's just so many different things. It's like, well, that person drinks more than me, so I'm not an alcoholic, or I'm still going to the gym, and I still have my job, and I haven't lost all these things that kept myself like questioning or justifying the fact that I wasn't because I didn't want to admit it.
And we do that. We justify, like I was talking earlier about my coffee consumption. We
Hmm.
justify everything to ourselves so we feel better with it until we get to the point where we realize, no, there is an issue.
Yeah, and it's really funny because I think I was kind of like the last one to know. Like everyone in my immediate life knew, but I cannot be told by someone else. I had to discover it on my own, and those things had to happen, and I had to lose a lot of very important things to me in
Uh,
order to get to a place where I knew that I needed to pay attention to myself.
And I think anyone that has any type of addiction or any type of disease from this nature, the hardest thing is figuring out how to ask for help,
Mhm.
right? Because some people can just figure out a way to deal with it themselves, but to really ask someone for help to get you over that first step to get you onto the road of recovery
Mhm.
seems paralyzing for most people.
Yeah. Yeah, asking for help is a very, humiliating thing. You have to be humble, for sure.
And becoming humble is probably one of the greatest qualities a person can have. I think it kind of lessens the ego that we might have and creates a better person within.
Right, and that ego and that self-will, because we're human, it's human nature, and it's one of those things that's, like, almost a constant reminder or constant balance of, like, letting go of my self-will and knowing that, it's the spirituality part of it. I don't wanna give it, like, a full name, but, the creator just handing all of my will over to the divine spirit or whatever is,
But it's not. There's nothing wrong with saying that sort of stuff. I noticed with most people that I talk to, whether it's on the podcast or not, when they're going through something in their life and they want to talk about God or the divine spirit or whatever, it's almost like an inherent. I have to kind of brush it off like it's not like a thing because there's some kind of stigma if
Mhm,
people talk about God. And to turn right on this road of discussion right now, there's nothing wrong with having faith. There's nothing wrong with having a connection with whatever God you think is important. As long as you're following the ideas of don't harm other people, help other people, don't steal, don't cheat, don't murder. These are all things that we should all agree upon. So being strong enough and brave enough to talk about God in the way in which that you have faith is fine. And that's where I'm
absolutely.
at. I've only been there for the past year. And
Mhm,
over the past year, it's taken me steps to lose the whole I'm more spiritual than I am religious conversation.
mhm.
I have faith. And that's just where I'm at right now. I have faith in everything that happens. I have faith in myself. I have faith in a God that I believe in. And that's the road that I'm on right now. And I say it confidently. And I share that with the world on the podcast. So having that divine spirit come into you and take you to a point of no return. It's basically what you're talking about. You're a mother And I think the scariest thing for a mother is having the children removed and waking up one day and realizing like, fuck, this is on me. This is my choice. I made choices to put myself in this situation where now I'm being threatened with things that give me joy being taken away from me. How did that's like water just crashing down upon you.
Well, the real mind fuckery of the whole situation is that sober me would not make decisions that drunk me did. And so I hated myself.
That's where you
And
have
that's
to
a
go.
crappy place to be, where it's like, I can't even believe that I did these things, but now I have them on like court documents or video or evidence or whatever showing
Forever.
that I've done these terrible things of neglect or of, putting myself in way of in self-harm situations and other people. Like anytime you get behind the wheel, driving drunk, like
We've all
let's
done it.
face it,
We've
we've
all
all
done
done
it.
it. I've done it tons of times. I can't even count.
In your situation, you could have hurt yourself to the point of dying, and then your kids would have been without this amazing mom.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, there's in reflection, there's just I feel so much gratitude and just I'm so thankful for things playing out the way that they did because yes, they could have been so much worse. And the relationship that I have with my two younger children right now, the open communication that we have about it, and the integrity and honesty that I can have with them, they have truly 100% forgiven me and they love me and the presence that I give to them now. And that is a beautiful thing. And as much pain and guilt that I felt during, the last few years where it was really ugly, dirty, bad, I was allowing people to treat me in ways that I would never want to exhibit for my daughter in a relationship or, just different things where I'm like, that's a dark place that I don't ever want to live that way again. And now that I have the freedom of making the choice of like, I identified what the problem was, which was alcohol for me. And now I don't have to go back there ever again. And I've learned from it. And I've made that peace with myself and with my children. And it's just the freedom is just like
Life changing.
amazing.
Do you think that now that you have this open communication with and how old are the two younger ones?
9 and 15.
So, okay, they're not young.
They're not babies.
Yeah, they're in that age of really understanding what's going on around them.
Yeah.
Do you feel that, maybe your situation and having the open conversations with them about the dark place that you went and where you never will go again if you stay with the program, if you stay doing things that are that will be good for your mental health, they may never go down that road?
Um, I don't think that I can predict the future. I do think that it may give them the tools to be able to identify with themselves if they're seeing themselves go down a certain path, but I was that age once and I had to make my own mistakes. My dad struggled with alcoholism, and I saw a lot of that as a child and saw him go through many consequences. Did that change me? No, I had to go through it myself. So, as a parent, I don't expect that by making a mistake, my children won't make the same one. I think that that would be a naive thought.
Maybe just hoping that if they put themselves in the situation, they might know better than to get in a car with a friend who's been drinking. Maybe, hopefully, they say to that person, "Hey, why don't we just call a parent and get picked up?" Or, "Hey, let's get in an Uber and get the car tomorrow." That, like, I don't have children, and I just hope that by God willing, I have them one day, and hopeful that if I share with them my experiences of stupidity, that they may make that choice instead of this choice when they're in that situation. I guess that's all a parent can hope for, is give them the information of what could happen if you make this choice in life. And if you make this choice in life, it'll just be, a tiny bit smoother.
Yeah, perhaps. And if they don't, then they learn from it. But I think that what I can do as a parent, what I do have control over, which is very little, It's myself, my own reactions, my own feelings, my own, just this
This
bubble.
own universe right
That's
here.
it. I don't
That's
have
it.
control over them. That's them. But I can be there.
For them.
I can be open to whatever I want them to feel comfortable coming to me. Because I know how hard it is to make a mistake and admit it and ask for help. Back to that same thing. Like,
On a very large scale. Now learned that.
yeah. And I think we were speaking before you started recording, but we remember being in our 20s and those early teenage years where it was like, I don't care about tomorrow. No regrets. Like, we're living life. So I want them to have that too.
Yeah, I think we always want, again, I don't have children, but we would always want them to enjoy their life and learn from their mistakes. And hopefully they make a lot of mistakes, because it's the only way you can grow as an individual from falling and picking yourself up again.
Yep.
Jiminy Cricket, for anyone out there that doesn't know who I'm talking about.
Pinocchio. Watch Pinocchio.
There you go. Well, one of the originals, because I'm sure the one we saw wasn't even the original. But Jiminy Cricket was, on Pinocchio's shoulder, kind of telling him what he should or shouldn't do. And in the 20s, gratefully for me, I had ventured down the life of drugs and partying. And at a very young age, I was September of grade 8. I smoked hash for the first time with a buddy of mine outside of temple on the holiest day of the year. And then from there, by the time I was 21, I had already tried hash, weed, mushrooms, acid, PCP, cocaine. Ecstasy didn't happen until I think I was 22, 23 maybe. But that's a lot of shit. And I didn't think about tomorrow. I honestly, I didn't. I like, now I can't do anything. Maybe smoke a little weed to go to bed, but I can't do any of the other stuff because I'm aware of what it's going to do to the whole construct of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want that anymore in my life. The realization of when you're doing things or living your life in a way that you're allowing things into your life that you wouldn't allow once you realize how bad they are for you. I'm bringing this into the conversation, and we may go back to the addiction, but of relationships, because relationships are kind of like an addiction as well. And maybe not everybody, myself included, I've put myself in relationships where I have received the wrong emotions, where I've allowed myself to be treated a certain way that I wouldn't want to treat somebody else. Now, at the same time, I've treated somebody else in ways that I don't ever want to be treated in my 20s, because then that's when I was selfish and I didn't give a fuck about anything but my own not my own happiness, my own selfishness, I guess. What is it that you had gone through in one or two, I assume, long relationships that you may have had, that was something that you just should not have allowed yourself to be okay with?
Is there a pass button? I think the key takeaway for me, I lost myself and lived so much in my head of reacting or responding to the other person so much that I just didn't exist anymore. There's just so many complexities to relationships, and especially in my situations where it was like the majority were like 2 long-term relationships, both resulting in having children. There's a lot of ups and downs with pregnancy and child raising, and then also throw alcohol or any type of drugs into the situation, and it's just like it feels like turning on one of those really old school TVs and just seeing static almost when I think about it, and I'm still processing and working on, like, my part in all of it, and my part is huge in the way that, there were codependency issues and there were, um there was so much fear and hiding and, like, being scared to be myself and
But yourself at that time may have not been yourself, because, like you said, there was drinking involved.
Right,
So there's that
100%.
layer as well.
Yeah, yeah, and, I mean, just the end of the last relationship I was in was just so ugly, and I know that the other person feels the same way, like, it just got really, really disgusting.
Like
Um,
verbally, every
everything,
aspect of it.
everything.
I
Yeah.
liked your analogy there of the old TV with the static coming down, because you can get lost in a relationship so much, and you can forget who you are and become something that you think the other person really wants, and you put your own feelings aside. It's unfortunate, and I like to think that we're not alone in admitting that we have done that to ourselves.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you're willing to take the time to process it, to find out where you were accountable for some of the shit that had gone on in the relationship. And part of that accountability is admitting that you weren't allowing you to be totally in the relationship.
Mhm.
You became a different person in order to appease the other person in the relationship.
Right, and then how much of that was just what I thought was appeasing the other person
And they
and
may have
not
been
truly
pissed off,
communicating.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've said it before. I was in a 3-year relation. Well, here, I'll say this. In my entire life, 46 years of being on the rock, I can say I've only been in 2 long-term relationships. Both of them were 3 years, and both of them were on and off again. The first one, in my 20s, I was a horrible individual to this young lady. I was so selfish that I didn't really care about her feelings, and I can say that now because I can fully admit that at that time, I was only thinking about pleasing myself. I don't wanna say my own happiness, because I didn't start doing that until my late 30s, but my own selfish interests of conquering other women, I guess you could say. And then the second relationship, which was much later on in my life, which is something that kinda catapulted me into where I am now, was 3 years on and off again because she kept pushing me away, but I was a person who wasn't myself. I was, and this is where I can admit I was probably too much, because I was always there and I just wanted to be loved by this individual, and it just wasn't happening. And until I removed myself completely, like, I mean, I went on a trip, left the country, removed myself, was I able to realize who I wasn't and who I really was. And then taking the accountability of, it wasn't all her fault that it didn't work for 3 years. I shouldn't have kept trying to make it work after about 3 months, but I couldn't see myself at that time. I was too blinded because I thought what I wanted was the love from this person, but I couldn't even love myself at the time. And so therefore it ended, and then I was able to process and move on and become a happier individual being by myself. Not saying that I haven't gotten into other relationships for short periods of time that
Right.
also unfortunately did not work out, but as relationships, like you said, they have layers of complexity. So the 2 bigger relationships in your life, unfortunately, most of us are unsuccessful at relationships, otherwise we would be in one. I think that's the easiest way to look at it. What positives do you think you've taken from the unsuccessful relationships?
Yeah, I've learned so many different things. I mean, each time we meet an individual, whether they're in relationships, can be friendships or people that we work with or whatever. I've learned, how to surf through a relationship, more about cooking. I dated a chef for a long time. How to put myself in situations where hanging out with people that I normally wouldn't hang out with. I don't know. There's lots. And then of course my children are like the number one key takeaway gifts. And that's where I just once again with my faith, I'm like, well, it all happened for a reason. I don't know. The topic of relationships when it comes to an intimate relationship for me, where I'm at right now, it's really it's a difficult place. I'm still working on that. I have a lot of character defects in relationships, and I reflect back to my childhood where it's like my mom and my dad didn't stay together for my entire life, and then she married someone that I called my pseudo dad for some time, and he suffered with bipolar, so that was like an adventure within itself, and then they had a really nasty breakup, and then he died when I was, like, an early adult, and she was still angry and spiteful, and there's just so many, like,
Nuances.
complexities, and, then I have older siblings as well. I'm in a family of 6 children, and I'm the 4th, and so it's like, I just don't know that I've seen enough healthy relationships to even know what it is or what I want, and just in my life, like, I know people who are married, and a lot of them are miserable, or they
Or
will
you
talk
or you
publicly like, "Oh, that's my, person at home that I live with because 'cause I'm chained to them," and I just that whole, like, it's all very unattractive
it
to me,
unfortunately, most people, and I hear this phrase quite often. If it wasn't for my children,
right?
right? Which is a weird thing to say. It's like, hey, you're married to someone and you're publicly saying, if it wasn't for my children, well, don't put it on them.
Right,
If
that's not
if
fair.
if you're not happy, get out. And I
Yeah,
and I trust me, I'm not married. I'm not, like, it's easy for me to say those things sitting outside of the box. I understand there's pressures and I understand it's easier to stay and for the kids and blah 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 and all this justification for it, but you
well,
owe it to yourself and to the people that are involved in the situation, I believe, to be honest.
right, and maybe not even just, like, if you're not happy, get out and throw in the towel, which I used to think that too. That would be my first advice in the past where it's like, "Well, you sound miserable, get out of that." How about, like, you sound miserable, the other person might be too. How about you work on that?
Or it
And,
comes
like,
back to the communication fact that we've all faltered in not being great communicators. Maybe it comes down to if you can't communicate with yourself, how can you communicate with others?
right, right.
Where might you be at on the level of you? Like you mentioned earlier, you're so much happier and so grateful about where you are now because you've gone through some shit. Are you happy with yourself? Not unhappy with the situation that had happened. I'm asking, are you happy with yourself? You're
Absolutely.
good. You're at that point.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Like, last night, I've been doing a lot of reflecting in the past few days because I'm in a place in a relationship in my life with my sponsor where we're turning the page. Time for a new chapter. So it's time to move on from that specific relationship. And the conversations that we've had leading into this decision this week have been a little triggering for me in certain ways. And instead of reacting in the way that my body is like, well, and my mind is like, oh my gosh, what is this? I pulled out a sheet of paper and after work last night when I got home, and I just started writing, like, what are the fears that this is triggering right now? Like, is this an abandonment issue? Is this, I'm fearful of this person judging me or what they might tell someone else about me because the sponsor relationship is it can be pretty in depth. Like, you do, I don't know if you know much about the 12 steps, but one of them is like you literally write down all of your character defects and everything wrong you've done in the past, and you talk to them about it because you tell another person. So there's just a lot of it really all stemmed into like this fear base of I've communicated openly with this person, and now my fear that we're not going to be in this relationship anymore is that they may divulge some of my information to someone else or judge me or I feel rejected. And then I wrote down on the other side of the paper, like, what are things that I can do instead of feeling this way, which is being curious about why this person is reacting in the way that they do, or I react, or what circumstances in my life in the past are am I associating with this situation that are making me react in this fear. And so just spurring that, like, slow down, think about it, curiosity was so helpful to me. And then when I got up this morning after like a great night's sleep, um, said my prayers, got ready for the day, walked out into my kitchen and saw this piece of paper on the table. And I was just like, I just feel really good about the situation. So, yes, I'm extremely happy. Do I still have character defects? Yeah. Do I still have things that I know I need to work on? Absolutely. But do I lay my head down at night and feel really at peace with myself and who I am and sleep soundly and wake up feeling good? Like the fact that I wake up feeling good every day is just like, can we talk about that? Amazing. Yeah.
It
Yes.
takes a while to get there.
It really does, but it's so worth it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because everything, so I don't know the full 12 steps, but a lot of people that have sat in that chair have been into some sort of addiction rehab. A handful have been in AA. So those 12 steps, and I'm assuming it might be the same 12 steps in drug addiction as
It
well.
is. Yep.
And it's amazing how much everyone, whether they're in a program or they're not in a program, all admit that writing things down, getting it out of your body, and a thing I call, or the books call, auto suggestion, which is saying it out loud, helps. And then whether it's gratitude or writing down things that you need to work on, things that you wish were no longer part of your life, the aspect of writing it down seems to be a common denominator to get people from where they were to where they are, which hopefully is a happier place, which allows them to look in the mirror at the end of the day and smile at the individual that they're seeing, look back at them, and go to bed. And then, like you say, wake up in a good mood, which you can't put a price on that. It's absolutely different. Now, you talk a lot about character defects. I look at them as we're human.
Hmm.
There is no such thing in my belief system of a perfect human. We all have areas that we all need to work on. And if you want, again, this is my belief system. If you want more happy days than not happy days, you need to work on it, which is you, every fucking day. This is not a do this for 3 months and you're going to live a happy life. This is a maintain that shit every fucking day of your life, and you will have more happy days than not happy ones.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be cool if I could say, I went to HotWorks 2021, 2022, and now for the rest of my life, my body is going to be limber and detoxed and in shape. That's not how it works.
Not reality.
Physically, emotionally, spiritually, all the same thing. We
Hmm.
have a muscle that we have to condition in order to improve my internal happiness. I choose to work on them consistently.
Anyone that I've talked to in the world of consciousness or inner alignment coaches, people who want to help others become more successful at life, they all say the same thing, which is you will for the rest of your life be working on this, because life is going to throw challenges at you. And those challenges are going to pull out things of your system that you may not realize you have, or that you may thought you've worked on enough and gotten rid of. I refer to the old Bradley sometimes. And as much as I might have stretches of positivity and good days and just great successes in personal life, life throws challenges at me without me even being aware of it. And that individual who is still part of me is in there,
Hmm.
and he gets pulled out at times. But I have the ability that in the moment that he is resurrected, I'm able to notice that he's there. And it gives an entire inner being feeling where I can physically feel the anger of him coming out. And I have to realize I'll be in the shower at the end of the day and be like, dude, you did not need to react that way. Why did you react that way? But I don't beat myself up over it. I realize that it happened. And then I think, okay, well, tomorrow, if that situation comes up again, be mindful of it and see if you can withhold getting angry for maybe a minute longer. I don't give myself some massive goal like don't get angry.
Hmm.
Just try to hold off on losing your shit a little longer than you didn't yesterday. And those goals, small as they are, can help me in the long run in not having that individual come out, because we have so many individuals in our heads.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
Depends on the mood, depends on what we're going through, a relationship, a discussion with a child, a phone call with a parent. There's different versions of us within here.
Well, that's who makes us us. And if you
Yes,
think about those different turmoil triggering situations, it is all your human experience. Think about it. Like, I may slam my cup down on the table and you may feel a completely different way about the sound and the action than I do. Maybe it's something that my dad always did when I was a child and it was funny and we all laughed and cracked up on the floor every time he did it. And maybe for you, it's something that triggers harm or fear where you would feel your inner child would feel like it needs to run and hide. And every single thing that happens to us throughout life is carving the way that we perceive different situations. And so it's like acknowledging that we're all different and that we have different perceptions and different ways of looking at things and reacting to things, and then self-identifying who you can control, which is only you, and where you were wrong in certain situations or yeah, at the end of the day reflecting, which is kind of step 10.
I believe that when people are on the journey that we're on at the time in which we feel we've gotten to the point where we can self-reflect and really unbiasedly say you were wrong talking about yourself. You should not have reacted in that fashion. Next time that happens, recognize it, react differently, react in a more positive way. And when you're able to do that, it's life altering. I don't 1% probably I fly off the deep end sometimes if I get pushed to that level, but it takes a great deal to get me to that level where 10 years ago, it was probably like the slightest thing would have fucking set me off. But I do a lot of self-reflection, like daily. Like I really do at the end of my day. I think about all the good and all the bad that happened in my day, whether it was something I did or let's say my truck didn't start the other day. And I think about how I reacted to each situation. And in a way, it's kind of like really giving every part of my day life and then saying, okay, I'm okay with all those things that happened. And I'm okay with the way I reacted, even if I acted poorly on certain things. And I'm going to be okay with it all now. And I'm going to let it go so that I may enjoy my sleep. And a lot of people go to sleep holding on to the negative things that happened in their day, whether someone cut them off in the parking garage or someone at work said something to them that they didn't like. They dwell on it, they hold on to it, they don't have a good sleep, they wake up in a shitty mood. I try to reflect on my whole day and give myself the ability to let go of anything and everything, good or bad, because it's now in the past. I cannot do anything to change any of it. But I can go to bed with a happy thought. I can wake up tomorrow if I'm part of the wake up club. Then I have the opportunity to do what we call that 1% better today than I did yesterday. And that's how I try to get through life.
It's interesting to think about also in the way that you're to me, the way that you're framing like the 12 steps or the program and talking about how, if you went to a meeting, you would enjoy it, of course, because it's similar to a podcast where you're listening to someone speak on their life experiences and then everyone kind of shares a little bit afterwards, which is super helpful. But we're all there because we have the same disease. We all ran to alcohol, some cases drugs, but what the steps are working on principles to become a better person, which anyone can utilize this type of step work in identifying and working on anything that they want to and apply it to their life and just being a better human being. That's really why did we drink alcohol? Like alcohol's not really the focus or the problem. It was just the band-aid.
It's what we thought was the solution.
We thought it was the solution. For me, like I was shy. I was coined as shy as like a child. And so when I drank, I was like, I'm not yeah, I'm
Woohoo!
not shy anymore. I can talk to anybody. Um
Liquid courage.
But I wasn't shy. I just was very selective about who I opened up to, and I'm learning that about myself now. It's just really it's really cool because as much as we want to apply ourselves to self-improvement and practicing principles throughout the day to feel good, like that is true wealth. Slow down and realize the beauty of life and like all these little things that we can enjoy, and I don't need anything to alter my reality because my reality is so beautiful the way that it is
Because
in my presence.
you've chosen to make your reality a reality that you enjoy.
Hmm.
And that's a big thing that people don't quite grasp. I think people that are at the point in their journey that we're at can understand I'm choosing to make the reality that I want. And therefore, I'm getting more happy times than not. Slow down, you move too fast. You got to make the moment last. And I'm not sure it's a song. I
Hmm.
think it's from a folk singer.
I was
But
ready for you to just bust out.
yeah, no, I mean, I can't sing, but those lyrics just came in my head. And I have a couple of playlists that have that kind of music. The music in like the 50s and 60s, like they were really speaking about the stuff that we're now okay with communicating in large visible platforms, which is so awesome.
Hmm.
It's hard for most people to hold on to the feelings of enjoyment because they look at it as a thing of the past that only came when they were a child. I've been practicing because of my environment. One of my closest friends, who is mentioned on almost every podcast, has never lost his childlike enthusiasm for anything. And he's stayed true to it forever. And because he is part of my environment, I've started to try to put that into practice in my life. And I look back at times of doing things that I was so happy, like the feeling, the true feeling of the body feeling happy,
Yeah.
which in turn made the physical layer smile. I think about those times and I hold on to what that feeling is and I input it into my system so that I can feel that almost constantly. And when it does happen, it's like a warm blanket. Like I'll be driving in my truck with Sushi, who's taking a nap on the couch. And for no reason but me choosing to be, I start smiling. There's like no reason why not to. It's easier just to be, you know, but like a smile comes over my face, a giggle is in my belly. I look at my puppy and I'm like, I'm living the life I always dreamed about living, which I think means I'm living a life of happiness, no matter what challenges come at me. No one's going to knock me off my fucking rocker. It's just not happening. And I don't need anything from anybody. I choose to be happy because I want to be.
Beautiful.
That's why we do this. That's why we have these conversations so that both parties in the podcast can really walk away from it feeling something good. And like you said earlier, everything that has happened in our past is the recipe for the dish that now sits here. And what I think about that is we are creating new ingredients right now for our future dishes. So the positive moments that we've now created by sitting here and having a good conversation, which we will both take something from this and move forward with in 5 years' time, we can look back and say, well, that conversation added some positivity and helped get me to where I am now. Like we said 9 years ago when we met, we kind of vibed together back then. It was a very long time ago. We were two totally different people, but we've become the people that we are now, that we were able to sit down and have a wonderful conversation in hopes that other people out there in the Lyfe Choyces land will gain some positivity from. So thank you so much for coming by today. I look forward to growing our friendship in the future, and hopefully you'll come back to have another session with us here.
Yeah, it was my absolute pleasure.
Amazing. For all my lifers out there, thank you very much for coming back like you do each and every week. We will see you here next week, Tuesday at 2 p.m. on the Lyfe Choyces podcast. Much love, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen,
You are now about
The Journey, Lyfe Choyces podcast.